So what's your podcast about?
Superheroes.
It's a little geeky, but I think you guys are gonna like it.
Try not to be too geeky.
No, I can't promise that.
Should we begin?
It's a bird. It's a plane. It's the Geek and You Shall Find podcast. And now, your hosts, Kelsey Dickerson, Brad Fay, Kate Fay, and Noah Berlin.
Hold on to your butts.
Welcome, everybody, to the Geek and You Shall Find podcast. We are here. My name is Noah. We have Brad. We have Kelsey, Kate, and the Princess of the Realm, Parker, that are here and excited to talk about episode 2 of House of the Dragon with you guys. Now, you all, did you see that they didn't announce the title of the episode until today? It was not announced yesterday. Did you see what the title is?
No.
Oh.
So the title, which I had to literally dig for it in researching for this podcast, but the title was Rhaenyra the Cruel. So I was like, okay, that makes sense, I suppose.
Oh. Do you think they did that on purpose, or like were they not sure what to name it?
No, a lot of times they don't reveal, like if it might be a spoiler or something. Like that one wasn't as big a spoiler, but sometimes if it would be a spoiler, they won't release the title, the episode title.
But a son for a son, I feel like it's more of a spoiler.
Yeah, I know, exactly.
Interesting.
Yeah, that's a good point. I don't really know. But let's jump right in if you guys are ready with tonight's episode breakdown. All right, so episode 2 begins immediately in the aftermath of episode 1. Suck it, time jumps. So we're off. We're immediately thrown into the fallout surrounding the murder of Jaehaerys, the 4-year-old son of the king. The Red Keep is in chaos. Everyone's searching for the murderers. King Aegon has a meltdown, and Otto devises a plan to use the dead baby as a prop to gain favor from the smallfolk. Aegon stays in his fields. He destroys his father's old model of the city, while Helaena and Alicent follow the dead heir's body in a procession to the dragon pit. Helaena has a panic attack as the pores swarm, but their PR stunt largely works as the citizens of King's Landing flock to support, calling Rhaenyra the Cruel, which is the title of the episode, the Pretender, and the Defiler of the Innocent. When news of the murder gets back to Dragonstone, Queen Rhaenyra is baffled and wants to make it clear she had nothing to do with it. Daemon doesn't take responsibility either, and he says that he was clear in his instructions to Blood and Cheese. An emotional altercation follows as the queen tells Daemon that she can't trust him, leading to the king consort taking his dragon and fucking all the way off. So Criston starts shit with Sir Eric, sends him to Dragonstone to pose as his twin brother and strike down Rhaenyra as she sleeps. Aemon seeks comfort from the madam of the brothel. Jacaerys and Baela reminisce about family, and Corlys and Rhaenys debate what's next for Daemon. King Aegon has all the rat catchers in the city hanged outside the Red Keep, and families and dogs mourn, earning the ire of the Hand of the King. Otto loses it, criticizes Aegon for undoing all the goodwill that they had just earned. Major Tywin vibes with Joffrey vibes right here. The king fires Otto from his post and names Sir Criston Cole the new Hand of the King. So earlier in the episode, Sir Arik calls them one soul with 2 bodies, and the climax of the episode takes place as the twin King's Guardmen, each loyal to a different side in the war, are forced to fight to the death. An emotional duel occurs. It's nearly impossible to tell who's who, and at the end, one prevails and then ends his own life, unable to bear the weight of killing his own twin brother. So that's the episode.
Now that you break it down, like, because I was thinking before when we were talking, it's like, there's like 3 main scenes, but a lot is jam-packed into this episode. I think even more than the opening episode, really, even though, there was like such a huge event that happened during it, but this one was really jam-packed.
Yeah, it's interesting because in the first episode, everyone's just dealing with the fallout of killing Jacaerys. Yeah, Jace. No, Lucerys.
Lucerys.
Yeah, see, I messed it up. But the whole fallout in episode 1 is based on that death, and now this one, the fallout is all based on the death of Heir Jaehaerys. So it's all just crazy. I think that other than the action at the end, there was a lot of talking in this episode. It was definitely a slower pace, but you mentioned it right there. There was 3 kind of main scenes, and for the segment of that scene, I think we should kind of go through all of them. So first off, we have Queen Rhaenyra and her husband Daemon, who Parker loves. Parker's over here. Just
Daddy Damon.
eating up Damon.
Sorry, Brad.
So not really an MVP this season, I don't think so far. But what were your first impressions, Brad, of this scene with Rhaenyra and Damon?
Yeah, there was like a lot of, I mean, at least that scene, like something came out. I feel like there was just a lot of, and I don't mean this in a bad way, like talking scenes, like Corliss and bed, like, there was just a lot of like stuff where I'm like, okay, but what's like the fallout? Why did we just see this conversation? But that one, at least I feel like there was like something came of it that we saw the immediate impact of Damon leaving. I think the assumption is he went to whatchamacallit, where the fire always happens.
Harrenhal?
Yeah, that the assumption what he's gonna go seize Harrenhal to kind of like cement that.
I
He
mean,
mentions that.
that was one of my what to watch fors of like where the fuck is he going kind of thing.
Yeah.
Rhaenys says like, well, he's crazy, but if he wins us Harrenhal, then all's forgiven. So I'm assuming they're leading us to believe he is heading to Harrenhal.
Or
Well,
is
I
he gonna
mean,
go do something selfish? Not selfish, but you know what I mean, like in his
Yeah.
own interest, and be like, okay, you know what? Fine, I'll show you that like maybe I am what you say I am.
which is definitely a possibility, and I think it alludes to either option, right? So that we're not going to be surprised, because if he mentions like, hey, like I'm like, as of right now, I'm going to go win Harrenhal for you in your name, and then they have some more back and forth, and then I mean, as we see, Damon does what is in Damon's best interest, even if it's masked of, you know, having like sprinkles of wanting to do it for someone else or other intentions, but he definitely is scorned, and he feels that that is his throne, and that he should have like been named heir, which in all, like, in regular tradition he would have been, but obviously King Viserys saw what we all see in him too, with that huge selfishness and unreliability, which is exactly why like this all came to a head in this scene.
And Rhaenyra says to him, like, you say that you're here for me, but straight up asks him if he accepts her as his queen and ruler, and he doesn't respond to that. And she basically just says that, no, you are just using me as a tool to grasp at your stolen inheritance, or what you perceive to be your stolen inheritance. And yeah, it is interesting because he definitely is loyal to her, but it seems like it's only to a point.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I thought that was really telling that he didn't respond to that. I thought that was really, really interesting of like, is it one of those, I'm not even gonna dignify that with an, it was really good how ambiguous they made it of like, I'm not even gonna justify that with a response, or is it, I'm
You're
not
right.
gonna, because you're not gonna like what I have to say.
Yeah. And he
The whole
says
com-
that Viserys, like, he says to Rhaenyra, do you think your dad named you the heir because of your merits? No, it's only because he wanted to stick it to me. And that kind of, it really makes her feel like shit also.
Yeah, that whole conversation was so interesting to me, just because she is just like, for the first time, she says like, I don't trust you. I never have. And I took that as a challenge when I was younger. So that
Yeah.
almost tells us like that's why she was so drawn to him. Like, I don't know. I do think that they love each other. I think that there's love there, but yeah, it's really rocky right now. And I was like, ooh, Damon is not looking good so far.
And I think that, we all ship them for sure, other than, when we're not thinking about the fact that it's uncle and niece. But like we see that they are so similar. They're basically like the same person. And they said in the after the credits clip thing on the show that essentially they are the same person. He's just a man, so he's able to do whatever he wants, whereas she has to be smarter about it and be more calculating with her actions. And that's the only thing that really separates the two of them. It's just, it's crazy because we've always been a little confused too about, I mean, last season he chokes her, right after her kid dies, I think, or right before, I don't know. And we're all kind of wondering, like, why did he do that? We don't really understand. And so we say that he loves her, but Rhaenyra says in this episode that his heart really only belongs to him, and it's whatever he wants to do.
Yeah, and I think we all definitely have either been in relationships like that. Obviously, hopefully not with your uncles or nieces or whatever, but like we all understand like people like that as well. And what I really found interesting, and what I really truly loved, and what I appreciate about these actors is that within 2 seconds, her face changing, you knew that she knew. And she was the only one in that room that
Yeah.
knew just with a look, that without like the confirmation. Obviously, Rhaenys has always had her guard up about Damon, and they had that whole altercation beforehand. So she already knew that he was up to some weird stuff and that he was going to be doing some shady shit. So it's like she knew because of that. And then she obviously is like the queen of staying in her lane. But yeah, like just that look and her knowing, like that just really too just shows the connection that they have with that unspoken language, which is like really rare to not only have, you know, between characters, but like just to be able to have it so clearly shown to the audience. It was just that I really loved that scene for that reason.
Yeah, I also think Rhaenys is dope. Like she's always been kind of dope, but you never really know what you're gonna get with her. She's one of my honorary MVPs or my secondary MVPs for this episode. But she definitely knew also. Like her and Rhaenyra both knew in that scene when they're all talking. And the way that she kind of had Rhaenyra's back in that episode too, or in that scene too, where one of her small council members just kind of, accusing her like, hey, maybe you did do this because a mother in her grief might do crazy things. And she's just like, you better mind yourself right now.
Mhm.
That was
She
cool.
said, say that again.
Awesome.
Yeah. What did you think about right at the end of this scene, Damon storms out and walks by his daughter Bela, and Bela's like, "Father?" And he just kind of looks at her and keeps walking. What did you think about that?
I think it just shows the
Yeah.
many sides of Damon. Like, you know, he first and foremost, yeah, he's there for Damon. He wants to do what he wants to do. And like I think that shows like his ability to cut off like the people that he loves when he's on a mission or when he's mad or whatever, because we see it through and through. He truly is a narcissist. I mean, let's be real. You know what I mean? He wants to do what he wants to do, he wants what he wants. And if you're in the way or if like you don't add to that, like you're like, because he hasn't interacted with his children at all. And also too, maybe, I mean, I don't know, like he clearly had a lot of love for his first wife too, and that seemed to really affect him when she died. So I mean, I don't know, maybe it's this is giving him maybe too much credit, but maybe it's like a painful reminder of like, you know, these like she's not around anymore. I don't know.
Yeah, and it's interesting too, the juxtaposition between like you saying like Damon wants what Damon wants, but it doesn't seem like he's always been like power hungry, because he went through that phase where remember, he was just like chilling and reading his books, and his wife was more of the one is like, hey, let's get out there. Could we do something? And like, you just want to sit in here and read all the time. But like, it just seems like once he gets in his mode, he's like, this is what I want to do. I don't care what's important to anyone else right now. Like, this is where I'm at. So now everyone else has to be at this place. But when he's like bloodthirsty and wants to go out, like everyone reaps the consequences of like what Damon wants and his actions kind of thing.
You're exactly right. It's not that he is always power hungry. It's just that he wants to do what he wants to do when he wants to do it and doesn't want anybody to tell him he can't do it. And so if he wants to chill in Pentos and could not go home and just get money from the people in Pentos, then that's what he wants to do. If he wants to go and kill a bunch of people, that's what he wants to do. And he just doesn't like the fact that he has to get approval from anyone else other than himself.
Yeah, we just constantly see too one of the and I'm sure we'll talk about that scene of sexy Aemon curled up in a little ball. But when he's talking to like that, I don't know, the sex worker or whoever she is, and she kind of says like, the small folk are always the ones who suffer, and like you see that like Damon's mad, go kill a baby, I don't care which one it is, and now all these rat catchers get hung because of it. Like I think we constantly just see the actions of one man's whim, like now a bunch of people suffer because of it. But to him, it's like no big deal. You shrug it off. I was pissed off. I just did something. It's like, yeah, but like lives were lost because
Well, he's like, it was a mistake, whatever.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
feel like that's like all these men. Like
Sure.
that's the whole series. That's what this whole war is about.
Yeah, when Corlys and Rhaenys are laying together and they're just kind of talking about what is Daemon gonna do, and he always wishes to be his own master. Devotions never sat well with him, Rhaenys says. And Corlys asks her, like, do you think Daemon will challenge Rhaenyra? And she's like, no, but he also can't allow her to command him. And that's just what it comes down to with him, is that he needs to be his own boss. He wants to do what he wants to do, and he has a really hard time being commanded by anyone, whether it's his brother or his wife.
But
Honestly,
those things can't coexist. And at
Yeah.
some point that has to come to a head,
Which we
and it's
might be seeing now, but I don't know. Yeah.
yeah, and it's unfortunate. I think that really is like kind of foreshadowing of these two together clearly are a powerhouse, and they could truly pull this off, even though they have Vagar and they have like done that whole PR stunt and everything that happened in this episode, that it seems like the tides are shifting. But also too, like when they crack and they falter, like, you know what I mean? It just shows the weakness that, like, I mean, their strengths also are weaknesses, like, you know what I mean? So like they were built on a foundation of mistrust, clearly. Like neither of them trust each other or feel like the other one has pure intentions when it comes to like what the other wants. So I don't know.
And
It's going
again,
to be interesting.
you see the dichotomy of like Corlys being like in a completely different relationship with his wife, of being like, yeah, sometimes like you got to negotiate. Like sometimes it's okay if you order me around. And I think we're seeing these scenes like put up once against another, be like, yeah, one relationship doesn't really have any room for like negotiation. So like something's gonna happen at some point.
I like how Corliss got a little sexy with it too, where she's like, yeah, he just can't let her command him. And he's like, that's a pity because I find that very enjoyable. I'm like, all right, do you, Corliss?
Mhm.
Well, Brad, you talking about the Aegon hanging all of the rat catchers, that is a perfect segue to our next scene, because following Aegon taking matters into his own hands, he knew one of the rat catchers was involved in the murder of his son, so he had every one of them hanged outside of the Red Keep. So when the Hand of the King, Otto, finds out about this, he confronts King Aegon and Kristen Cole, and he kind of loses his shit there. And this was my favorite scene of the episode because, yeah, it reminded me so much of Joffrey just kind of doing what he wanted to do, regardless of how cruel it was, and Tyrion smacking the shit out of him in season 1, and Tywin just dunking on him too later on in the series. So it reminded me so much of that.
Yeah.
He laid the foundation, like, yeah, he walked so Tywin could run.
Oh, so Tywin could run. I love that. But he's
What do you
like,
guys think though of like who played it better? Like Tywin was really good at playing that game. Like I think it's time for bed. Like he was
Yeah.
punking him, but low key enough. Like Otto really like later. Like I was kind of surprised he was outspoken, and I was kind of surprised that he was surprised that the title of hand was taken from him. Like
I
he was
totally
really tough
agree
as
with you.
a kid.
So, okay, to answer your question, I think that Tywin had the power. Like Joffrey was the king, Tywin had the power. So when Tywin clapped at him, like Joffrey knew his
He
place,
knew,
had to shut
yeah.
up, right? This one was a little bit different because Otto didn't have the power, but Otto still went at him. And Otto kept just kind of getting louder and doubling down and tripling down and insulting him more and more. So it reminded me almost of that scene with Vaemond in season 1, where Vaemond kind of knew like he had lost, so he was just going to go out the way he wanted to do it. So it seemed like Otto maybe was just he was just that mad, and he knew that there would be consequences, but he's going to go for it. But at the end, he really did. I mean, he was very surprised when Aegon told him to take off his pin.
Yeah, I disagree. I don't think he thought there was going to be any consequences because, I mean, clearly in that scene, like you truly see that he's like, okay, like there really is no hope for Aegon. Like he's a fucking idiot. Like, you know what I mean? Like I'm surrounded by all these stupid people who don't understand the big picture at all. Like, you know what I mean? Like all these things, like totally like take away all the work that we did, parading this dead child around, which by the way, I was expecting his head to fall off. Like
Oh,
I
yeah.
literally was like, when they were like in the thing, I was like,
1000%.
I was like, are they gonna, or like his body to fall down? Which that's a side
I
note.
think that's
I
what
was
they
like,
wanted us
oh
to,
my
yeah.
God,
Yeah, I literally
can't.
was like, they're not, are they? But yeah, I think he was like, okay, well, no matter what, like they're like, because I'm laying into them, like I'm gonna open up their eyes to see like you need me. Like I think he still thought that he was like he could say whatever he wanted, and it's fine because he was so shocked. And to your point, I don't understand why he was like fucking like Aegon the second is very unpredictable, clearly, and he's in a very emotional state, and Kristen is a fucking idiot. So I don't know. He was shocked, and I don't know why he was shocked. He should not have been. I
Well,
think he
Otto
should have tried to
he
care
went
for
in
him.
on him. He went in on him, right? And he's like, "You're a fool."
It was
And
glorious.
Kristen's like, "You better mind how you talk to the king." And he goes, "Well, the king is my grandson, and my grandson is a fool." So that was funny. It was also funny where he's like, he's pissed off that they just undid all of the goodwill. They worked hard to get that PR with the funeral and get the small folk on their side. And in one fell swoop, now, all the small folks are, as Otto said, cursing Aegon's name for killing their family members who are all innocent, minus one. And Aegon's like, well, I want to act. We need to act. You're not doing anything. Sir Kristen Cole acted. And I was like, okay, what did Kristen Cole do? She's like, well, he fucking sent Sir Eric to Dragonstone to pretend he's Sir Eric to kill Rhaenyra. And Otto's just like, you fucking morons. He's like, he thinks this is the stupidest thing. He called it a prank, which I thought was very funny. He's like, get
It
this
is. It's
parent
the
trap
Parent Trap.
shit out of here. Get this parent trap shit out of here. And Kristen Cole being the worst, she's like, it's time the bitch queen paid the price. Man, fuck you, Kristen Cole. I have a whole lot to say about you later. But
seriously, the slow turn, Otto's slow turn was like literally one of my favorite things ever. He was just
Kate
like,
and I cracked up out loud
Yeah.
both times when we
what
rewatched
did
it.
Kristen do? Like, it was so dramatic. I fucking loved it.
Otto's eyes just scream like "fuck my life." Like when it was like, "What did you idiots do now?"
It's like in Lion King when Scar is like, I'm surrounded by idiots. And it's like,
That's
it's
pretty
so
good. I didn't know you were going to go where you're going with that Lion King reference. That was pretty good. But so Otto just
hang
gets
on,
even
got
more
more.
mad. Yeah, Otto gets even more mad. And they're talking about Viserys and really, like, this episode just cements that Aegon has firmly turned his back on the legacy of his father. And, it starts with him smashing up his model of old Valyria that Viserys loved. He was a big history guy. Aegon doesn't give a shit about all that. He says he doesn't give a shit about Viserys's forbearance or his judiciousness or dignity. He wants revenge. That's all he wants. And eventually he turns away his father's hand. So it's just very clear now the direction they're going with Aegon, which is just, it's an iron fist. I'm going to be ruling that way. I don't care about any of these other things. It's all about revenge, and it's short term, and I want to kill anyone that is not on my side.
Well, speaking of that, like, obviously Larys has been putting all these, like, these little like cookie crumbs, like, on the way. Like, I think he was kind of hoping that he would eventually be the hand, right? So it's
That's
like,
exactly
how do you
what I
think
was thinking.
like Kristen Cole is going to be gone, because not only does Larys know that he's fucking around with Alicent, but also now that he just all of a sudden willy-nilly just like gets like named hand, like, I think his days are numbered for sure.
But I was thinking the exact same thing. Larys is doing all this to put in work to, like, lay the foundation to be named and propped up to that, and then all of a sudden it goes to Kristen Cole. Larys is over there like, God damn it, like, what do I got to do?
Well, it's really interesting too, because one of the things it kind of bothers me a little bit, but like I kept thinking when watching this episode and just the show in general, there's a lot of people whose motivations you don't know. Like, there's a lot of people who I don't know what they really want. Like, what does Otto want? Like, he has his grandson on the throne. That was his whole big thing. So he's pissing and moaning about something. Like, just people can't just like chill and like kind of relax and be like, we're good. It's always like,
hold on a second. Otto is the one that needs to chill and relax. He's the only smart one there that's keeping it all together.
True, but like, take a second to like, I don't know what more do these people want. Like, you live in a big castle, like everything's really nice for you. Like, relax, take a
Brad,
breath.
please.
Brad, that
People
is
like
absurd.
that, yeah, people like that want power and crave power. Once they get it, they want more. Like, what
But that's
what
what
are
I'm
you
saying.
talking
What
about?
more does he want? He's hand of the king.
No,
And
I think
he's still
now
not happy. Does he want to be king?
Well, no, it's like Tywin at this point, and we're like, now he has the power. Like, he's never going to be the king. He has all the power he's ever going to get.
He
So
wants to
now it's all
control it.
about legacy. It's about his family, and it's about the safety. And when war is on the horizon, that threatens all of his family. The Highgarden, or they could all die if this goes the way that he doesn't want it to go. So he's putting in all this work. You see the small council, and Aegon is fucking losing it. He's throwing shit everywhere. My sister, the whore, she's laughing at me, and he's the only one that's like, okay, we have to remove our feelings from this. We have to think clearly and make good decisions so that this could turn out to be in our favor. And he comes up with the whole plan, the whole PR stunt, which worked. It was smart. And you see, like, even Rhaenyra's small council, they're like, yeah, they have damaged our position by a lot. Like, we are in a very bad position because of this thing that happened, what they did. So Otto is making good decisions for their side and doing the real thing, and everyone around him are just morons.
Yeah, I agree with like the decisions he's making and that he knows the importance of PR. I'm just saying, like, I don't understand where people want to get to, like, next. Like, it seems
They
like a lot
want
of people
to
have
they
kind
want to
of
make sure that they are like that they are known that they are the rulers of the Seven Kingdoms.
so it's
Like
wanna cement
plateaued.
it.
Like,
Rhaenyra's
they've kind of
gone, yeah.
plateaued. Like, Kristen Cole isn't gonna go any higher than where he is now.
He just
Otto is
did.
gonna go higher.
That's a bad example. Kristen Cole came from nothing. He was like
No, but I'm
steward.
saying where he is now. Like, he can't go any higher than where he is now. He's peaked.
Yeah, but
Otto had that character at peak. That's why I think either these characters need to start getting killed off, or they're gonna leave like Otto left. Because I'm kind of like, you peaked. Like, there's nowhere for you to go anymore but down. And I feel like that's where Kristen Cole's at now.
are you talking about from like a narrative standpoint or from like a
Yeah.
character standpoint?
From like a narrative standpoint of like, is Kristen Cole really gonna be like the hand for the rest of the season? Like, no, something bad's about to happen to him. Like, that character, from a narrative standpoint, like, that character's gone as high as he can kind of go on that show.
Yeah, but
So,
I mean,
like,
you
what
never
happens
know that
next?
it could turn out that Allison gets pregnant and then his kids are there and then somehow they're down the line in the line for the throat. Like, it could go a completely different direction.
If they
Noah,
really wanna
it
take
is
there.
interesting that you say that because I really was thinking the last episode, I was like, watch Allison fucking get pregnant. Just
I
watch.
did not even think of that.
I mean, can you imagine that though? Because she's not married now, so she can't act like, oh, the
Right.
strong
Yeah.
boy is like, no, it was Laenor's, when like obviously this motherfucker, these kids are fucking bastards, as
Oh my
Damon said.
God.
But yeah, I mean, you just never know what can happen with them. But I mean, all of them with Otto specifically, from a character standpoint, again, I don't think he's looking for more power. He wants to cement it. He wants to make sure that his family survives and that his side wins.
Wants to
Yeah.
work.
I mean, it's just like literally a double-edged sword because, like, that's what I'm saying. You're saying his thing is legacy. Is it legacy? Like, his grandson just got killed and he didn't really seem to give a fuck. And his first instinct was, we can use this to our advantage. Like, are you really
Well,
your
not
legacy?
no, not really, Brad. Like, because you're forgetting like when fucking Aegon is going fucking ape shit and saying like we're gonna kill that bitch whore, like blah blah blah. Like he's saying like, hey, we don't know who did this. Like, you know what I mean? We need to make sure that we like, because he understands the ramifications of like declaring war. Like they're already like kind of on the brink of it. But like they're like, he's like, we need to make sure we know exactly who did this before we act. And then once he saw that Aegon was like not having it, he's like, I don't care. Then he's like, fine. Then okay, then let's say, then we're just gonna say that it was her, and then that's gonna cement our side. But also too, like, I mean, when he's talking with Alicent, he says he's like, I'm also grieving. Like, you know what I mean? That was my grandson who I loved very dearly. But he, as we see throughout, even in the first season, he doesn't think like that. Like, he wasn't thinking of Alicent like his daughter when he's like, you know, basically selling her to the king. He wants to make sure that he really is Tywin in that way, where he's like, the way that he shows his love or whatever, or like his love is like by solidifying their power, by solidifying like, you know, their family line. And that's why he's like, if you're sinning, I don't want to fucking know because I got enough problems on my plate.
I guess that's my question for you guys. And maybe motivation isn't the right word. I just don't know where he's coming from. Do you guys really get the impression that like Otto gives a fuck that is great? Like, was he just not showing it, or does he really not care? And all it is to him is, how can I play this to our advantage? Was he sad? Like, you know what I mean? Anywhere near what a normal grieving person would be. Or does he just instinctively go to, okay, what can we do about this that helps us?
Well, he's cold and calculating. I do think that he cares, but that is not, there's so many more pressing concerns that are at the forefront of what's going on in the war to come, that this one kid being like, that's such a problem for another time almost. And like, that's crazy to think that way, but that's also what makes him so good at his job. And no one else has that quality.
But I've just never seen him care once on the whole show. Like you got that scene of Aegon in the room crying when Alicent walks in.
He's
Like
not emotional. Yeah, he does not show emotion.
That Otto doesn't. Like he pimps his daughter out to the king. He never has a moment. You know, stop picking at your fingers. Like you never see him being a person. Which whatever. I mean, that's fine. But I'm just saying, like, it just gets to a certain point where I'm like, okay, is he just full of shit when he's telling Alicent, I'm grieving too. I'm like, are those just words? Do you really mean that? Because you're not showing that at all to the audience.
Yeah,
And that's why I'm like, I don't know where we go from here with the show of like where some of these characters can continue to go because they're kind of like one dimensional at this point.
Yeah, I don't see it that way at all. I think he's one of the more interesting ones, honestly. But did you guys notice the funniest part of this scene to me, other than all the funny things that were said, was at the end, he makes Aegon makes Otto take off his pin. He throws it to Sir Criston. He's like, yeah, without a strong hand to guide you, like you guys are fucked, basically. And then he goes and he's storming out. He opens the door, he's like half out of the door, and then Aegon yells, you are dismissed.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, bro, he's already leaving. He's gone already. And it just reminded me of, I think, from The Office, right? Where he's like, you know what, I quit. He's like, well, you can't quit because you're fired. It's like, that's exactly what it was like. Ugh.
It was also super interesting that he's like, Aegon was like, well, my dad made me king. And then Otto was like,
is that what you think?
Really think that?
Yeah.
That laugh that he gives
sure
that
about
turtle.
that?
You sure about that?
So it's really interesting that like he has known the whole time, right? Like
Yes. And Kate, that I think that was so significant that finally, like, because he never admits it, he never even like hints towards like the possibility that Rhaenyra was like supposed to be like or was supposedly named or whatever. But yeah, that really shows. I think that like going back to the motivation, that really shows his motivation and like that he's like, what, I'm gonna do whatever I can for my side of the family to make sure that we're solidified in this position. But I thought that was really significant that he actually was like, is that what you think? Okay.
Yeah. I mean, even in one of the last scenes when he's talking to Alicent before he takes off, and she's like, "Father, I've sinned," and she's gonna tell him about her relationship with Sir Criston. He's like, "I don't want to hear about that shit. Like, that does nothing to help me or us. Like, just I don't need to hear about it." Like, so he knows too.
Yeah, but
yeah,
again,
I mean,
knows what I'm talking. He doesn't care about it. Like his daughter might need a shoulder to, like
Not about
talk
that.
to right now. Does not give a damn about anybody. It's just like so like cold.
this is Game of Thrones. We don't have time.
But that's why he's a good character, because he's so like every character can't be everything. They can't show him being cute and kind. Like that's not his character.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
I mean, you could talk about like we're talking about Otto being this way, but I mean that scene when Alicent walks in and Aegon is literally sobbing. I think that really shows the difference between because those episode right before we see Rhaenyra, like Rhaenyra and Luke that they're Jace, sorry. Rhaenyra and Jace, like, they're like embracing and like she truly is a motherly figure that loves her children. So yeah, that was really interesting. I saw a tweet that said like this bitch really chose not to comfort her like crying son to go fuck Kristen Cole.
I don't want to deal with this right now.
She's like, I was gonna talk to him, but he's really being a bitch right now. This is gonna take too long. I got some things I gotta attend to.
But I think that shows, I mean, that also shows like how she was raised. Like, I mean, that's what she knows from her father. It's like, you know what, like, and she even says to Helena, like, I don't want to do this either, but we have responsibility. We're royalty. This is our role. We have to do this. And like, that is just how she's lived her whole life. That's exactly what's been pounded into her, like ever since she was a young child, literally a child bride, which whatever at this time, whatever. But yeah, it's just very interesting seeing that. Oh, sorry. I thought she was 13. My bad.
Yeah, I mean, she's always talking about duty and honor and how important it is, and that's all she does. But then she goes and fucks Kristen Cole. So it's again, it's
Yeah,
all big one
yeah.
hypocrisy.
She's got
Or
needs,
Kristen Cole
bruh.
when he's like, "You wear a white cloak, you are a virtue, and you got mud on it. You're supposed to be virtuous." I'm like, and obviously that's what they want us to feel. It's not like the show's being hypocritical. Like they know we're sitting here rolling our eyes, but it does such a good job of us being like, "Dude, shut up with your like hypocrisy."
Hmm. Well, I mean, clearly, like, I mean, throughout the episode, we see Alicent and Cole like really struggling with their guilt because, I mean, if they weren't fucking, at least he would have been out there. Which that's a whole nother conversation. It's like a very convenient thing. Like, you know what I mean? They were able to go all this way and there was no guards, which is like such utterly bullshit. Something that you just have to kind of look over, right? But yeah, like I mean, they're really struggling with their guilt, and that is exactly why like he like lays into Eric and just is like, you know what, I'm gonna lash out because this is the only way that I'm gonna be able to like feel like I don't have like as much responsibility as I do.
Yeah, and that's a perfect segue to our next scene, which goes, along with the two twins fighting, but all of the buildup before that. And it starts because of this guilt that Kelsey, you're talking about right here, and how it's fucking with Kristen Cole. He has so much shame. He can't talk about it with anyone. He just completely lashes out because he knows he's such a hypocrite. So, he says earlier on to Allison, he said, there is no absolution for what I've done. So he goes up to Sir Eric and he just starts shit, like for the sake of starting shit. And he says, he's talking to him, your cloak is dirty. He's like, yeah, my bad, dude. We just had to be outside. Like it's been a long night. I haven't slept. I'll do laundry tomorrow, whatever. And he's like, the white cloak is a symbol of our purity, our fidelity. Then like, shut the fuck up, bro. What the fuck are you talking about? He is the absolute worst. But so he questions about the cloak. It's obviously not about the cloak. He then asks him, which I just thought was funny, where were you on the night of the murder, Sir Eric? And he's like, well, I'm protecting the king, so I was protecting the king. He goes, well, why weren't you in the king's bedchambers? He's like, well, the king wasn't in his bedchambers. He was with his boys getting fucked up on the Iron Throne. So I was there with him. He's like, you were the one that didn't assign someone to protect the queen. And where were you? And he's like, oh, I was in bed. Yeah, okay.
I was abed.
Yeah, whose bed were you in at that moment? But it just was so ridiculous. But I'm glad they brought that up, Kelsey, just like you're saying, though, because when we saw it last week, it was just like, okay, this seems a little unrealistic, like you're saying. Where are all the guards? Like there are people sworn to protect all these people, but it kind of shows that
Thousands of them. Or how
well,
many like white cloaks? 100, 200? How many
well,
are
so
there?
no, so the gold cloaks are like the cops. There's a lot of those, but the Kingsguard are the white cloaks, and there's only a few. And so, based on what we've seen, a few of them defected over to Rhaenyra's, right? What's it called? Sir Eric, or so Arik now gets sent away, so it's another one gone. So I think there's only like one other white cloak that's there, loyal to King Aegon. And also, I didn't realize, but the fact that there are no time jumps and that this is moving quickly since the finale of last season, it's only been like a week, which I read somewhere, that it's been like a week that he's been Lord Commander, which is kind of crazy. So it just shows that he's just really bad at that position, and now he's taking on an even more important position on top of that, which is insane.
He literally is like the epitome of like failing upward. Like how the fuck?
100%. I have that written down as well. But so he just like, it just shows that this dude doesn't know what he's fucking doing. It's totally his fault. Not only was he not doing what he was supposed to be doing by being with the Dowager Queen, but he didn't assign people to be with the other people. It just was really ridiculous. But I'm glad they talked about that, because again, watching it last episode, it just seemed like, really, there's no one around anywhere, and it really just is Kristen Cole's fault.
Yeah, the 180 of that character in this episode, like Kristen, like Sir Catch Feelings, goes from the start of the episode of getting like bitched out by Aegon, like he's being held responsible in front of everybody. Like, this is your fault. This is on you. I'm like, he goes a 180, and by the end of that episode, he becomes the Hand. From like, it looked like he was about to lose his job to getting a promotion based off of coming up with a Parent Trap idea. It was just kind of a weird, like, it wasn't like this has been, although I guess maybe it just shows Aegon doesn't think things through and is like spontaneous, and maybe that's what they're trying to show, is like, oh, this dude had a kind of good idea, I'll make him Hand now. So maybe that's what it's trying to go, but I'm like, damn, I'm like, he really went a long way over the arc of this episode.
I feel like this whole episode was just like really showing that like when you're acting with emotions and you're just like doing whatever you can like for revenge, which is obviously a huge theme throughout the episode. Like the ramifications of that. Like you lost a great hand in Otto, he's gonna go fuck off to like Hightower or High Garden or wherever he's gonna go. Like we have Kristen who's fucking up left and right. They both sides lost an incredible loyal servant, you know, to their cause with Eric and Arik, which is devastating. And then yeah, now it's full on war. You know, again, and then also Damon, like him, like, you know, allowing, you know, that horrible, heinous act. Like, you know, it's like I think it's really showing what happens, like, and when people are just grasping at like, I want something to hold on to, or like something to like either point my anger or frustration or like have some kind of solution to without thinking through everything, which you have to do when you are sitting on the Iron Throne or you're trying to sit on it.
Well said.
Yeah, Brad talked about it earlier, and that's kind of the role of the small folk and the people that are not just the richest of the rich and the most powerful families. And I think we are seeing a lot of that now. I thought it was pretty cool in season one with Kristen Cole before you really know him that he's lowborn. He comes from basically nothing. He was knighted. Rhaenyra took pity on him and named him a member of the Kingsguard, and he's just been on the up and up. But you see the same thing with Sirs Eric and Arik, where they came from nothing too, and they both ended up on the Kingsguard, which is just a huge honor for a family of nothing. And you see what this war, the effect that the war is having on people that really don't have a say in the matter. And like they are the closest. I said it before. They talked about how they have two bodies and one soul, and then that's how close the two twins are. And because two other groups of people decide that they're mad at each other, now they're both have to fight each other, right? And it's same with by the way, I'm patting myself on the back because I mentioned in the what to watch for last episode that we're gonna see our boys Alan of Hull and oh man, what was that other guy's Hugh. Hugh. I was like, there's something. They're going to show these guys again. They're going to play more apart. I don't know what they're doing. They were in back-to-back scenes, but it's cool that they're showing their perspective of kind of what's happening to these families that are poor. They can't eat. Their kids are sick. Like they don't know what to do. And you know, what is our role in this war going to be to try to better ourselves because we have to try to do something. So you just kind of see what's happening to the small folk and how all of this is affecting people that are not the wealthiest of the wealthy. And I think that that's an interesting aspect of what's happening this season.
Yeah, I love the line the wife asked her husband when the husband's like, the king promised things are gonna get better. She's like, did he say when? Like,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. So anyway, it all leads up to the final confrontation, which again is between the two twins, Sir Eric and Sir Eric. Based on Sir Kristen Cole's orders, Sir Eric goes on a boat to Dragonstone. He arrives, and Missaria, the White Worm, notices that he doesn't look like the one that she was just talking to. Notices something's up. I was kind of waiting for her to, I don't know, run up there and save the day a little bit because she was grateful that Rhaenyra let her leave.
Yeah, that was such a weird I mean, maybe it'll like there'll be something later that comes of that, but that made no sense for her to be like, oh, like clearly she clocked it, like being like, oh, like he's coming from this boat, that guy is back there. Like that's weird.
Yeah.
I don't know. I didn't like that.
Well, she definitely said something
Do you
to,
think so? Because no one's
yeah,
gonna have
she
any
said,
clue.
hey, a moment.
Yeah,
Right,
she
but we
did
don't
say that.
know. She might have said, hey, a moment, and sneezed and went back up to the boat.
Do you think maybe,
She said something.
well, I was thinking like, you know, because when the brother comes in, he's like, brother. Like I was thinking, it's like, well, how did he know? So maybe she did like get the word to somebody.
I'm
I
assuming
think
that's
for
what
sure.
happened. They just cut the
Mhm.
scene where they actually
Yeah.
show that random
Totally.
guardsman telling them. But yeah, it was a little bit confusing because I kept waiting to see her run up and be like, wait, something's wrong. Protect yourself or whatever the fuck. I don't know. Anyway, she notices dude sneaks through the castle. Can we talk for a second about how the King's Guard on both sides have literally the exact same armor? Like they haven't changed that up at all.
Yeah.
Clearly, I think that's going to change after this, hopefully. That is really weird. And like the whole, like, I don't know. And then that also shows like a big difference. Like there were so many guards, like when he was going through all these places and then including his brother, like passing by him like 5 times, like a Scooby-Doo episode. Like, so it was like, that was like really crazy. And it's like, so it just shows like, I don't know. I get really frustrated with the inconsistencies like that, just for like just for like, like the just ease, like the easiness of like telling a story of like
For
getting where
sure.
you need to go. Like, you know what I mean? I'm like, that shit frustrates me
It
so
was so
much.
unnecessary too when he walks up to the door. Like Scooby Doo
Yeah.
is such a good way of putting. He goes, "But I thought you were inside. You were out. Oh man!" I'm like, just like let him in and like,
He's
be like,
hiding
yeah, you know,
behind a
at least acknowledge
column.
it.
Yes, like he's hiding behind a column. Like oh god, I was like, okay, just get in the room already.
So
That was like a 10-minute scene of him sneaking around. Like literally, they crossed by each other 10 times.
I'm the only thing I'm glad that they showed during that 10 minutes of him sneaking around was how he had the helmet on. He sees his brother for a second. His brother's not wearing the helmet. He's like, oh shit, I guess I gotta take this off. But like they both have long hair. They do like different hairstyles. They have the exact same like ponytail hairstyle with I don't know, whatever. Anyway, Arik finds Rhaenyra's chambers. He goes in there and he's like, believe me, I had no choice, and goes after her. Eric comes in and they just have a battle. And I think that the director of the episode did a good job kind of with the tight shots, the cutting away to Rhaenyra, her with the other guardsman that comes in, like shuffling around, and they truly don't know which one is which. And I think they did a pretty good job telling that story of like, it doesn't matter which one it is. Like truly, it doesn't matter which one wins. It doesn't matter who's who. You know, obviously you're worried a little bit as a viewer that Rhaenyra might get killed. That wasn't never going to happen. But I like that they made a point to kind of emphasize like it doesn't matter because like this whole family's ripped apart from the moment that they were set against each other, and it doesn't matter. No one wins. No matter what happens, no one wins.
Yeah, and I think I really love watching, after the show where they break down, where they do like, the scene and character breakdowns. Because one of the producers, she made a really great point that this was like very Civil War-esque, like, you know what I mean? Where it's like,
American Civil War. Yeah.
yeah, the American Civil War. I mean, well, any Civil War really, like if you think about it, where it's like, two sides, like, families split apart and they each had like, their loyalties. Which that is one thing that you can say, like, like they each truly believed in the cause, like so much so that they, were willing to kill each other, which is horrible. I was thinking like when Kristen was telling him all that, he's like, yo, go kill her. And like, he's like, by myself? Like, what do you think I am? Like, you know what I mean? All this stuff. I was like, if I was Sam, I would just fuck off to like go be a sand snake or something like that. Like, I'd be like, fine, I'm gone. Like, you know what? I don't give a shit. And then I would send Raven like to my brother, be like, yo, like, I'm done with that shit. So when you're done, like, come join me here, like Shawshank Redemption or something.
Yeah, just honor is so big and duty. Like, they mock it, Kristen and Allison do, but honor and duty is such a big thing in the show, in this world. And so the fact that they both took oaths as Kingsguard, like it just they couldn't bring themselves to do it.
Yeah, it's so interesting you say that too, Kelsey, because there were times like you have to check yourself when watching the show, and like there are times I'm like, this is stupid, but I'm like, no, this is actually how like real life works. And one of those was like how people feel like a sense of duty, like you said, like most of us would be like, I'm just gonna go live in Pentos or whatever, like I'm out. But then like so I was like, this is dumb. Like, why do they really feel like an honor and a duty to like the throne that doesn't give a shit about them? But then I'm like, that's anyone who goes off and fights in war. Like people like, I'm gonna die for my country. And it's like most of the wars that have been fought, you're not really dying for your country. You're dying for some asshole who doesn't care about you. So like there are moments that I'll think something stupid on the show and I'll be like, no, this is actually just focusing on like how it really works. We're just seeing it.
When he came in, like, when Arik came in,
Yeah.
whatever. When the other one came in, like, and did you guys think there was like ever gonna be like maybe they're gonna be like, yo, like what are we doing? Like, you mean there'd be like a
You
light
hope.
bulb that goes off? Like, because that's for me, that scene was actually really hard to watch. Like, I think it like really put like, these spoils of like, just how horrible like war can be and like everything that goes in and like seeing them fight against each other, knowing how much they love each other, and then especially the end, where he's like forgive me, what does he say? He's like, forgive me,
My queen or
my
something.
queen, or
Your
something like
grace.
that.
Yeah.
God, and it's just like, it's just heartbreaking, like, you know what I mean? Like, knowing that they both believed in this so much, but then also they couldn't bear the weight of knowing that they, like, you know, that he killed his brother.
And
But that
going
goes
back,
back to the old Damon thing, is there's no middle ground. Like
Mhm.
the two of them weren't gonna come to, okay, maybe both sides are a little bit right. Like, we live in this world like with, House of the Dragon, where it's everything's literally like black and white now at this point. It's like you choose a side. There's no like, well, can't we negotiate and find like some middle way?
and I just think that, like we talked about before, of just it not really mattering who won that fight. I mean, I was really trying. I watched that scene twice just to try to like figure out which one was which, who actually won. But like again, it didn't freaking matter. So do you think, I'll ask each of you, do you think that the good Eric, the one loyal to Rhaenyra, won, but then he just was so sad about killing his brother, he killed himself? So he said, "Forgive me," as in forgive me for killing myself and losing a loyal person to you, but I got to do what I got to do? Or did the other Eric, loyal to the Greens, say, "Forgive me for killing the guy loyal to you, and forgive me for coming here to kill you, and now I'm just too wrought with grief that I can't deal with this, so I'm fucking out and I'm killing myself."
No, I think the fact that he like says like my queen or whatever he calls her, like
Your
that
grace.
shows that it was like
Yeah.
her guy that won. And two, I saw on Twitter like the director or somebody like confirmed that it was him that won.
So I saw that too, but then when I just watched it again, this doesn't matter. But like the good Eric, we know, got a wound on his leg because he got a wound on his leg, he falls down, and the other one that has no wound went after Rhaenyra. So we know
He
at that.
did end up getting he did end up getting a wound on his leg too. But I think it was the good Eric, it was like on his right leg, and the other one was like his left leg. I was paying
They
attention.
both had.
I'm
Okay,
pretty sure.
that was the one thing
Yeah.
I was using to differentiate was the leg wound, but okay, apparently it doesn't matter. Anyway, it just shows that either way could be interpreted, and I think that that was a smart move because again, you're supposed to look at this from the perspective of the people and to show the effects of this war, and it's a sad moment no matter who wins, and so it truly doesn't matter which one wins at all or loses because they both do.
I agree. And I think it just really shows, like, you know what I mean? Like, I mean, I will say, obviously, we see it in Game of Thrones, like, the effect that it has on, like, the small people or like, just like the major populations. And it's like referenced a lot. I think like Littlefinger talks about it, and like Varys, like they talk about it, like sometimes, like, you know what I mean? It's like, all these people up here doing all this stuff that like affects everyone else. But like, that was such a visceral way to show, like, you know what I mean, how like all this bullshit that like really just doesn't matter, like, you know what I mean, like affects these people in like a very real way. Yeah, and it's definitely gonna have a trickle down effect. But yeah, that was really hard to watch. I don't know,
No
like
one's gonna
personally, this
mourn
really
Yeah.
them.
affected me.
No one's mourning them. Next episode, they're not gonna be like, "Oh my God, we have to take a long time to reflect on how much we loved Sir Eric and how sad we are." Like, they're just gonna be another people that died to this cause in this war.
Yeah.
I mean, if anything, I think Rhaenyra will like mourn in a way, like, you know what I mean, like he was the first person to bend the knee to her, before Daemon puts, the crown on her. Like he brings the crown to her, like, you know what I mean. So they share a special bond that way. And two, I mean, he literally saved, like his dying breath was like saving her and her family. So I mean, I think that side will, but you're right. I don't think like, the like Team Green is going to give a shit. Like, you know what I mean? Kristen's gonna be like, okay, whatever, that guy's gone, I don't give a shit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this scene was not the first time we've seen a brother versus a brother in a fight to the death in Game of Thrones or House of the Dragon, and it kind of reminded me a little bit of the Hound versus the Mountain. And now that one was different because it was built up over the course of an entire series. This was not built up even close. But also, the Eric versus Arik was very much just a battle of two sides of the war, whereas the Hound versus the Mountain was very much a personal fight. How would you compare these two beefs between brothers?
It's hard because, like you said, the other one, the Clegane Bowl, was
That's
built
right.
up so much. And we knew that, like, we learned so much about the Hound, and, got to know him, and he was a really layered character.
Yeah.
So that one was so different for me because these characters, like, yeah, I liked Eric. Like, he seemed like a nice guy. I liked how loyal he was to Rhaenyra. And like Kelsey said, he was one of the first ones to kind of like really be like, okay, I'm here for your cause. But I don't know. It was hard. I'm with Kelsey though. This one was like hard to watch, like brother to brother, like really, it was sad.
Yeah. Parker agrees.
Yeah, I know.
I think too, I mean, for me, I was so checked out of Game of Thrones by that time. Like, the mountain is like a fucking zombie and like everything. Like, I just didn't really like where Game of Thrones was at, like in that time. And I don't know, then like I don't know, that was like definitely like more personal, and it's like, oh, like, the Hound just wanted his revenge and like, all that stuff, like, which I think he definitely deserved. But this one for me, I think was more realistic, I think. Yeah, and like and I mean we've already touched on it, and like, just like being so like anti-war, but like America's always in wars all the time. Like, it means like this stuff happens like, it's happened a lot in like not just our history, but like a lot of different like, war histories where it's like families divided. Even, I mean, you could take like it, like you can like layer it back a little bit, maybe not as like quite as like violent as that. But I mean, when we've had like these recent elections, like you've seen like families split apart in a way, like, you know what I mean? So I think we can all kind of relate to that a lot more. And yeah, just personally, like I was just like Game of Thrones season 7 and 8, just fuck off. So sorry, I know, Brad, you're rolling over in your grave about that.
Well, we're getting ready to do our awards of the episode. Any more thoughts on the twin bowl, I guess?
Auric Bowl.
No, okay. Well, at that, we've talked about a lot of characters and a lot of moments in the season, or excuse me, as in the episode so far, but let's go ahead and get into our MVPs. All right, Brad, who do you got as your MVP from this episode?
Yeah, I mean, we talked about it a lot this episode already. I thought it was like an original take when I put in like, seeing the small folk, like scenes of the small folk. Like they're not MVP in the sense of like they came up the most, but like I love when the show like gets to do that. And like, with the Game of Thrones books, you don't really get that perspective a lot because they're not any of the POV characters. So you get little like tidbits of it, like, oh, Arya's walking through this village right now, and you see the ramifications of it. It's always through someone else's perspective. But like, this show literally taking you in the household of a family that's talking about inflation and these chickens are expensive as hell these days, and like how
Thanks,
every like
Obama.
the price gouging on gas and like everything like that, like getting I like and I don't think this episode really did it great. I don't think they executed great, but I would still rather see them try to do that than not try to do it at all, and like us always be in the castle scene. Oh, dumb people are behind all these decisions. Like, there's only so much you could really do that, before it gets kind of tiring. So I like us getting into like these, the households of seeing like, a mother seeing her son like hung up for no reason at all, minus like his profession. And like someone else of his profession did something terrible, so now they all get hung. Like, I think it's important to kind of get those moments that kind of like, because that's, I mean, who we see the world through a lot more than we do like these like rulers and kings. So I like that they did that a few times this episode.
Yeah, well, the quote you said earlier from the madam of the brothel when she said, "When princes lose their temper, it's often others who suffer, the small folk like me." And I think that was almost a theme so far of this episode, and I think where the season is going, where you'll just continue to see the small folk and the people, the citizens, for doing nothing else, end up getting killed and paying the price for the wars. Kate, what do you think about your MVP?
So we've already talked about it pretty extensively, but mine was Sir Eric with an E, RIP. Just poor guy. Like I said, he was the first one or one of the first ones to kind of like really take a knee to Rhaenyra and declare her like the rightful heir. Um, and he died protecting her. And I just feel so bad that he had to die like that. But I thought he was an MVP. And then obviously, second half of the episode, Otto. First half, not sure about how I feel about the PR with the dead baby through the streets. But when he was talking to Aegon, it was it was so satisfying. Like just
Yeah.
the way that he was just reading him for filth. It was so great. And like I said, the slow turn, like I'm gonna be using that as a GIF from now on. Like it was just so good. I loved it.
Yeah, well said. What about you, Kels?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with I have Otto and his PR, coming from a PR background, I think that was like a masterclass. Maybe, I mean, obviously this wouldn't really happen in today's times, but it was a masterclass in crisis comms and using something to your advantage, like something very horrible, especially in the midst of war and, needing that support. So I really think Otto not only bitch slapped, bitch slapped Aegon and Kristen, like Kate was saying, which they absolutely needed, which, is obviously having some ramifications for him. That was absolutely amazing to watch. But I think, it just really shows the depth of like how much he understands what the hell is going on and like the bigger picture, which I really appreciate so much because he was like, as soon as he knew, he's like, Aegon is not going to listen to my first option of like being like, hey, let's have a level head. He's like, fine, then we're going to use this because you're going to do something crazy anyway. So let's just go ahead and do this, as horrible as it was. So yeah, I definitely agree. Otto and his PR stunt was my MVP. And then obviously honorable mention, our little pup who even, after everything that happened in the first episode was, sitting there waiting for his master, which was heartbreaking as well.
Cheese pup.
Cheese pup.
Cheese pup.
Noah,
Also,
who was yours?
one more thing on Otto too. I thought it was really I don't know, I thought it was really nice the way that he was talking about Viserys because like they had their
Yeah, me
issues,
too.
right? But like he was just like, damn, I miss that guy. And
Yeah, well,
I thought that was really nice.
well, talking about ambitions like you were earlier, Brad, that was interesting to me because I never quite knew if he really liked Viserys or if he just kind of was playing his role and trying to consolidate power and doing what he had to do to position himself and his family the best that he could. But yeah, it turns out that he really did care for the guy, and it was heartwarming a little bit. So I agree with you. For my MVP, I think it's obvious. Okay, first of all, the argument of MVP is difficult, right? Because it's like, who in our hearts as viewers do we like? Who are we cheering for? Who do we want to say got the win this episode? But then also from the storytelling standpoint, it's, who really deserved to win this episode? And along those lines, I'm going to say the MVP was obviously Sir Kristen. And the reason I say is because just like Kelsey said, I literally wrote it in my notes right here. He just continues to fall upwards. And I fucking hate people like that in real life. But that's what he does again. And he continues to get it in with Allison. So good job, my dude. But let's just call back all the times he's been fucking terrible. And he should have gotten either dismissed from the King's Guard or just killed or banished, right? So first of all, he breaks his vow with Rhaenyra, okay? Doesn't put up much of a fight, bangs Rhaenyra. He's sad about it, whatever, but he does it. That was the first thing. Then Rhaenyra gets married to Laenor. He's so mad that he simped so hard for Rhaenyra. She spurred his advances. And so at Rhaenyra's wedding to Sir Laenor, he punches Sir Laenor in the face. The fucking future king consort punches him in the face at his own wedding and then brutally murders another knight at the wedding. He should have been fucking banished or killed right then for doing that. Nothing happened. Nothing happened for that, okay? During a small council meeting, murders Kate's boy, Lord Beesbury. Just murders him in the middle of a small council meeting. Nothing happens. No consequences for that, okay? He bangs the queen consort, continues to do so, and continues to break his oath there. And then because of that, his failure as Lord Commander gets the kid killed last episode because he didn't put the proper people into place. He wasn't manning his post as he should have, and so on and so on. So this dude just keeps failing basically at everything he does, and yet he keeps getting promotions, and now he's the second most powerful man in the realm, and it's just ridiculous. So I think that there's no way that you can't look at Sir Kristen as an MVP.
He's almost like a nepo baby without being a nepo baby.
Yeah,
Like,
and
how
like
the
I
hell?
want to root for him because he comes from nothing. Like I don't want to, he's not like he is a nepo baby because he's not. But the worst.
I'm playing devil's advocate a little bit, like, because I get where you're coming from, but like at the same point, I'm like, is he the MVP or did he just like bite off more than he can chew? Like he might have also got screwed the most of this episode too, because like it's like the guy at work who skates by, and then all of a sudden like he becomes a manager. Like shit, now everyone's gonna know like what a fuck. Like now all eyes are on him a little bit more versus like you're right, he should have been fired for any one of those things, but maybe he was going under the radar enough. Now he's like in the spotlight.
But maybe
So
that's a future thing though, where he
yeah,
could
yeah,
really
yeah,
pay for
yeah.
that. But in this episode, like you can't say he's not the winner because I mean, look at it.
If that's what he wanted, did he even want the responsibility of being you know what I mean? It's kind of like the Aegon thing with the king. Like sometimes you get stuck with it. Like if it's not what he wanted, I don't know if it's an MVP because now he's like, man, now I got to deal with all this. Now like I just wanted to kind of hang out and have sex with the queen like that. Like I was kind of good. Now I've got to like go all of these meetings and like give my thoughts when I don't know anything about any of this stuff. Like
Yeah,
I've
but
got to be consulted about finances and stuff.
that
And
the quote
Noah,
that absolute power corrupts absolutely, right? So it's just one of those things that once he
Yeah.
gets it, you never know.
but Noah, like, I mean, it was interesting the way that you switched your verbiage because, like, we're talking about MVP, which is most valuable player, but then you said he's the winner, which I would agree with that. Like, he's the winner. Like, he's definitely done the least or he's fucked up the most and been rewarded the most for it, which in a way is a win. For now, we'll see what happens later. But yeah, for MVP, like, I mean, he got there, like, he's really fucked up a lot of stuff.
Sir Aegon doesn't agree with you, or King Aegon doesn't agree with you. He thinks Sir Kristen Cole's the only one that's acting, the only one doing
Aegon is
anything.
But,
It's a
Aegon
yeah.
brilliant
has a
plan, the
melted
Parent
brain
Trap.
from Aegon has a melted brain from hundreds of years of incest. He doesn't care.
Lindsay Lohan inspired that man. The Parent Trap was brilliant. Well, we talked about winners, we talked about MVPs, and so with that, let's talk about losers and LVPs. Anyway, Kelsey, stay with you. Who is your LVP from this episode?
I mean, a complete opposite swing from you for every reason I just said. Kristen Cole. He was absolutely my LVP. I think he's a piece of shit. He was just doing a lot of things just to make himself either feel better or just to put the blame away, which like I said, Eric is dead. They both have a lot of guilt. The prince is dead. Like, you know what I mean? So he is just absolutely my LVP. But on that note, now that I'm talking through it as well, last episode I said King Aegon was my MVP. I think there's also an argument for him to be LVP in this episode as well, just because of his insane reaction. He is letting his emotions run amok. It's showing that he really should not be in this position, that he doesn't know what the fuck he's doing. And yeah, that's gonna definitely have a lot of domino effects as well. So I would say that they're co-LVPs, which you know what? They're hand in hand right now. So
Sure. What about you, Kate?
I think there is no other answer than Kristen Cole. I hate him. I hate his face. Every time he's on the screen, I'm just like, can someone please punch him in the fucking face? Which Allison does kind of. She slaps him,
Dude.
but then she has sex with him. So not great. But yeah, just for all the reasons, I mean, all the previous stuff that he did in season 1 and then this season he's just terrible. Like he's just projecting so badly on everybody else. Like he feels tremendous guilt, which he should, but then he puts it on Eric and puts him on a suicide mission and gets him killed, and I don't even know how he's gonna do as the hand or what's gonna happen, but he's gonna fuck it up for sure.
Brad?
I put for my LVP, I put just security protocols. at both of these places is just like, Kelsey, like, gee, you just sneak in, like, oh, you want Aemon dead? Well, okay. Now we'll figure out this plan to go in and get Aemon. And within 2 hours, oh, we met this guy who, like, he kind of doesn't really like them. Like, we're in. And then, like, the twin switch of, like, oh, yeah, I didn't even realize we have this dude who looks just like the other dude. Like, now that we suddenly are motivated to want to go get revenge, now we'll come up with ideas. So yeah, just how easy it is to infiltrate these castles and stuff like that that you would think better security measures would be in place at.
I like that. I like that. For the LVP, for me, and again, I'm thinking of LVP as the biggest loser of the episode, and it's got to be the mother of Sirs Eric and Sir Arik. So I just feel bad for that family and the mom and them and all of them. So that was my LVP.
That's very nice of you, Noah.
Yeah,
Thank
no.
you. I'm just thinking about the moms,
Very sad.
Okay, moving on from MVP and LVP, the next category that we have is the cringiest moment of the episode. What really made you look and kind of roll your eyes or kind of be like, ugh. So, all right, so where did it get weird for you, Brad?
I mean, Aemon, I like curled up in a ball. Like, I don't know if anyone out there watches Full Metal Alchemist. I just had flashbacks of seeing Alphonse at the gate. Like it literally looks like they handpicked that artwork and just like took it from Full Metal Alchemist and were like, let's get this skinny long-haired dude curled up in this mistress's arms. Like, yeah, I had to look away at that. Not because it was badly done. Like, I thought the effects were really good because God, I hope the actor really didn't do that to his body. I'm hoping that was like some CGI and not like some Christian Bale. Like, the actor really lost that weight to put his body in that position. But yeah, it was tough to look at.
First off, this is another reason if you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or really any other platform, why you should be watching on YouTube, because first off, we are very good looking. Sometimes you see a dog in the background. In this episode, the most wonderful baby, Princess Parker, played a very important role in this podcast. But also, we just put up a graphic or an image of what Brad is talking about, of what Aemond reminded him of in this episode. And similarly, I thought I'm an idiot. I thought I was really the only one that was going to think this. But as soon as I saw skinny ass, emaciated, that little freak Aemond just like curled up in that madam's arms, all I could think about was that like fetus of Voldemort from Deathly Hallows, where just like the bloody fetus, where he's just laying there and it's like, ugh, it's just so gross, so bony. You can see the ribs in that same fetal position. So I'll throw up that graphic as well. But that's all I could think about in that scene. It was disgusting and weird.
You know what I thought about was the little like cockroach aliens from Men in Black.
Oh yeah, that's not the one that's in the head, right?
No, it's like those like the ones that are like in the break room, like they're like,
Yeah. We're drinking the coffee. Yeah.
Oh,
And also,
Okay.
I'm sorry to the actor because I'm sure he's seeing all these memes and that
Oh,
is
he
very
sees what his
sad.
face looks like, where he doesn't blink. He knows what he looks like.
Yeah, but it's still sad to body
Still, like
shame.
body shaming,
Yeah.
but I was grossed out. Sorry.
but A, I don't think that's his real body. I think it's CGI. And B, it's a role he prepared himself. We're not body shaming him. I don't think he really like looked like that in everyday life and got this
I'm
role.
sure he does.
Yeah, I feel like he did too.
Do you
Yeah.
think in real life before this role, like you could see his ribs and stuff?
Well, people gain weight and lose weight for roles.
Right.
I feel like this is probably similar.
Right.
I
think it's
mean,
like Christian Bale.
well, I mean, I don't think he's like emaciated. I think he just has one of those bodies that is like it's extremely lean and strong. And just in that, I think they did that on purpose of like that position and like maybe like the way that like his body was contorted to make it seem he was like even more vulnerable or whatever. But I think that's how his body is, like he's just like skinny and strong at the same time. I don't know.
Well, contrasting that scene with last episode where he's talking about how, basically calling his mom an idiot, saying she speaks with two tongues, like he doesn't really give a shit about his mom, like he's loyal. But that's not the person that he goes to when he needs to vent or he's feeling vulnerable. He goes to this madam at the brothel, and it was just interesting too. Like they're at a brothel, she goes to make out with him, and he's like, "No, not here." It's like, then where? What are you talking about? And then he just curls up on her. So that was weird.
Well, I think it goes back to what we were talking about of like they don't really have a mother figure. Like, you know what I mean? Like Allison really isn't that nurturing, like woman, like, that nurturing force in their life. And so this is where like they get it, I guess.
Oh.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, because I mean, clearly she's way older. Like, he's been fucking around with her for a while. Like, so I think it's like a double duty of like, I mean, one, we see that throughout, like, throughout like the series where it's like these men go not just for like physical pleasure, but also it's like their emotional release as well.
Well, I don't know if anyone will remember if this is the same person. Is she the one that like remember when they're looking for?
Yes.
Is that the woman that's like, "My, you've grown" to
Yes.
Aemon? That's the same. Okay.
Yeah.
I had a feeling
When Sir Kristen is in his like costume and it's like, "Oh, Aegon might be here." And it's like, "Oh, you've grown, my prince." Yeah. Yes, that was the same person.
Okay.
And stupid Kristen at that same scene was like, all women are the mother, like, or something.
We need to revere them
that.
like the mother. Yeah.
Yeah. And I was like,
out of here.
Literally, I fucking hate you.
Yeah. Did any of you guys have another cringe moment other than Aemon in that scene?
Well, I mean, speaking of Kristen, yeah, I mean, we already talked about it, but when he's like sending Eric on like that suicide mission, basically, like that was just so cringy, stupid, hypocritical. Like he just keeps burying himself more and more as like literally like probably my least favorite character in like the Game of Thrones universe of all time, which is
that's a wild thing to say.
He sucks. He really sucks.
Yeah, he does suck. My other cringe moment was just the sewn on baby head that they showed, and like you could see the gap between like where the stitches are. Ugh, that was disgusting, and I totally cringed on that moment for sure.
And to make them like the mom and grandma Helena and Allison sit like right behind it for like the length of it, I was just like, oh my, it like almost made me feel bad for them for a second. Well, I feel bad for Helena because she is, like Rhaenyra said, she's innocent in all this, but Allison, like, she did kind of deserve that to see what her actions have caused. But still horrible.
And also too, it was like kind of a flashback to the shame, like, you know what I mean, the shame like thing of like Cersei going down that probably the same path, when they were putting her through the ringer.
Yeah. Well, before we get to what to watch for in the next episode or later in the season, do you guys have any other things that you want to hit on or any other notes?
I mean, I was hyped to see illuminated manuscripts. Jen Over will make fun of me, but like when they showed the illuminated manuscript book, I don't know if that's something we ever saw that like exists in the world. Like, the books that like, like King Arthur books used to be done in the day is when they used to do the books with the image and there's like writing. Like we've always seen like scriptures from people, but this is the first time we saw like illustrations like inside the book.
Are you talking about what Rhaenyra was reading when she was talking to the series? Oh, okay.
Yeah, I thought that was like kind of cool, and I want to see more of that. Like, a song like Game of Thrones ends with the writing of the book, A Song of Ice and Fire. But like, I think it's cool.
It does. Shit, I don't even...
Well, remember when they enter in what Jaime's story is gonna be? Like, doesn't someone like Brienne, I think, a Tarth like goes in and they call that book like A Song of Ice and Fire kind of thing. So I just thought that was kind of cool. But that's me being a nerd.
Okay. Well, what do you guys have to watch for that you're excited about moving forward?
I thought it was interesting that they named another son Darren. Thought that was really interesting because he's never been mentioned before, or maybe they did before, but they like rarely talk about him. But just thought it was really interesting that they brought him up, and I hope he appears on this season because I'm like so curious.
Yeah, that was a big one for me. Probably the biggest one. I haven't freaking bolded because we forget that there's a third son that Alicent and Viserys had. So he's the youngest one. The third son of Alicent and Viserys. He has been in Old Town studying there. So he's just been chilling where Otto is from this entire time. And they really never talk about this guy. But apparently he's the same age as Viserys. So I mean, he's old enough to get shit done. He's not like a little kid anymore. And Otto talks about him that he's the smartest and most malleable, I suppose, of the kids of Allison. So I really am curious about seeing him.
Mm.
My only my only other note that I had, and it might be a dumb question, but I have like, do you want to know how I got these scars? I wasn't sure when.
What the fuck
Um,
was that? Yeah.
yeah, I was gonna ask, is that from Damon? Were those scars on? Was that alluding to
Damon.
the fact that like the worm like was beat by Damon or something, and like it's piecing together like, oh, he has a history of like physical abuse? Because she never answers the question. The scene just ends with her being like, "Where did you get those scars?" And then
Well,
it kind
she asks, where did you get those scars? And then starts reading her book. Like she didn't even want her to answer. It was just
oh,
like
I didn't.
very weird how that happened.
It was just the one scar on her neck.
Yeah. And I think that's what it was. I think it was supposed to be implied that it was from Damon because they were hooking up like beginning of season 1 or whatever.
If
I
that's what they were doing, then
disagree.
I think they did a bad job at that.
Yeah.
I disagree. I think it was from the high towers because remember she's talking about like how like her house burned and that it was the high towers and all this stuff. So I think like maybe they like try to kill her and leave her to die because we don't see her for a long time.
No,
Like
she
you mean so maybe
escaped.
they like, slit her throat?
The Hightowers thought they killed her in the fire, and she escaped. But
Mm.
either way, either it was inconsequential or they were alluding to the fact that Damon did it. And either way, I
Yeah.
think that was not a very effective way of telling
Okay,
that.
so I didn't miss that. I was just making sure there wasn't something that was like, no, that was important
No,
because of. Okay, cool, cool.
I mean,
no.
maybe, but then
Yeah.
they
Right, but
tell
nothing that I
us.
need to know now. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, speaking of that, like I think that there was a lot of like little like we were talking about before, like, oh my gosh, it is storming outside. Holy crap. Um, like there's like a lot of little crumbs that were left in this one. Like, you know what I mean? Like when Amond is like looking like the coin is right here, like you know, which I think is like a sign of like things to come for him. But I was actually more interested in the trailer. And when I think it's Rhaenys that's saying like when dragons start to fight dragons, that's going to be the demise of us. So I'm just really interested to see like when the war really starts and how everything shakes up because you know Otto's gonna like off doing his own thing, like Damon's doing his own thing, like so I'm just really interested to see where everyone lands when like the actual war comes. And yeah, I said it last episode too, but I'm gonna brace myself for all the dragon deaths.
Yeah, shit's about to kick off for sure. And I think that this was it wasn't a calm before the storm because things happen and everyone's grieving and then there's fighting, but it was more of a talking episode, as Brad said, a lot of just dialogue and not as much action. This one, where I think that it's going to start moving quickly, starting with the next episode. And particularly, what is the king going to do now that he doesn't have a competent hand leading him? I mean, he's now prone to just do whatever he wants and be as violent as he wants. And I think that could really impact some of that. And then also, my last thing, I talked last episode about my guys Hugh and Alan of Hull. Well, in this episode, we meet Alan's brother Adam of Hull, and so he's there talking to Alan. But then we see him again, and he's watching the dragon fly above him and just like being all mystified. And I want to say, at first, I thought that was Moon Dancer, the dragon, with Bela riding it because Rhaenyra says like, "Hey, go out and do some reconnaissance." But then I think it looked because it was kind of blue. It looked like Sea Smoke, which was Laenor's dragon, and so it just kind of reminds you then that like that's another dragon that's unclaimed, and they keep bringing in these new characters, and I know they're not Targaryens or Valerians, but like I don't know, it seems the way that they're introducing these specific characters leads me to believe there's going to be a lot more to them than just a quick throwaway scene because they're part of the small folk.
Okay, I meant to bring this up. Like, speaking of that, like Rhaenyra sending Bela to go keep a look on King's Landing. Do you like, is that also like do we think that she's going to be gone soon? Like, you know what I mean?
I
It
hope
also was
not.
really interesting. Do you think that she kind of did this because it's like, oh, well, you're like Damon's child. I want him to know what it feels like.
I don't think so. I hope not, at least. I hope not. I mean, she's more measured than that. I don't think she would
Yeah.
do something stupid to weaken her position by putting her people vulnerable, and she likes them anyway just to hurt Daemon. Like, I just can't see Rhaenyra doing that. But again, who knows? And in war, and people are going crazy, so who
Mm.
knows?
I just don't see the benefits outweighing what the potential consequences is, especially so close to after Luke's death.
Yeah, well, I think they know that now after killing the baby, Aegon is unhinged. They're going to do some crazy shit, and there's going to be retaliation. And so they don't know what that retaliation is going to look like. And if all of a sudden they're sending Vhagar to burn down Dragonstone, they need to at least know it's coming. So she's got to send someone to at least monitor what King's Landing's doing, just for defense. I don't know.
And she knows she can at least trust her. And she's
Yeah.
maybe is like scared to send Jace out.
And she
'cause-
said, stay
Oh, yeah.
high, stay high, stay out of reach, and just report back, basically. She's just reconnaissance kind of thing.
Yeah, and clearly she's not sending Jace on anything because he asked to go somewhere,
Yeah.
and she's like, "No, you're staying
Yeah.
here."
Yeah, which is by design, I'm sure. She doesn't want to put her heir now and her only other, well, not only other son, because she's got the babies with Daemon, but her oldest son and heir in risk. But all right, guys, I thought this one is definitely slower, but still a good episode, and just makes me more and more excited about what's to come. Any other last observations or things for this episode?
I wonder, where are the high towers from? Do you know?
They're from
Like,
Old Town. Yeah, that's where
but like, where is that like?
Old Town is where Samwell, that's where the Citadel is. That Samwell is studying
Oh.
at later in Game of Thrones.
Okay, cool. I wasn't sure if it was the place we'd see. Like, I know I where it is on the map, like of Westeros and stuff, but I'm like, is that a place we've been to? Okay, cool. So we didn't
Not
go there a
necessarily.
lot. It's where like the sword was hung up at Samwell's like place. Don't they have like the sword hanging up above like the
Yeah, and then yes, that's where his family's from.
yeah.
I'm blanking on the name of that like town or village or city or whatever, but it's also where the Citadel is, and like the Citadel has that astrolabe, which is like the
Yeah.
start of the Game of Thrones credits, where they show the astrolabe before going down into the map that takes you from place to place, and you see that in the Citadel, and that's where all the maesters train.
Oh, that'd be cool if they show more of that. So wait, do they have maesters at this time? Because we haven't seen a maester yet.
Yeah, we have the Grand Mate. There's been a couple Grand Maesters that are on the small council. Right now, it's the black guy with the bald head who's
Oh, he would be okay. I guess they don't ever call it like Grand Maester Pycelle. They used to always call like so. I guess I'm just not because there's certain positions it seems like they don't have. There was something else I noticed, and I was like, oh, that might not have been invented yet at that time. It was like a title for someone that I was like, maybe that wasn't a thing like around yet, or it seems like it's right around this time when Daemon the what do you call the guard that watches over when or King's Landing that Damon's like the head of when it starts?
Yeah, the City Watch, the gold
The
cloaks.
city that's like a new thing, it seems like when the show starts.
He starts it, yeah.
Yeah, so that's kind of cool to see these things that are so like embedded by the time we get to Game of Thrones to think of like, well, what things like hadn't started yet or just starting right now that come Game of Thrones time is like so cemented in it that we just assume this has been around from the very beginning. So
Yeah. Last episode, Brad, we talked about the Wall and the Night's Watch, and how early on when the Night Watch is founded and the Wall is built, and even the events of House of the Dragon, the Starks still consider it an honor to serve in the Night's Watch, and they nominate 1 out of 10 members of their house that goes, and they join the Night's Watch, and it's not a punishment, it's an honor. And so you see kind of the way that the Night's Watch starts, and then by the time we fast forward to the events of Game of Thrones, and it's just like literally it's all either fuck ups or rapers or robbers or whatever. They're just trying to stay out of the noose. And hence the mutiny and stuff that happens there. So it's interesting to see the difference of these foundations that occur in one show to the other.
I was wondering, that's really interesting too, because I remember thinking, I'm like, maybe that was still a thing at Game of Thrones, but they just never talked about it. Like maybe there's a couple guys up there that were part of that, and it just, or is it, so it's only like punishment, or like Jon Snow volunteered.
He did,
Like,
but it's because he's a bastard who was no longer welcome at his home. He had nowhere to go, so he had to do it. So it's either like bastards like that.
yeah.
Samwell talks about how his dad thought he was a pussy and didn't want him around, so was going to murder him if he didn't go and renounce his heir. And so it's situations like that, or a lot of times it's just criminals. And in season 1, you see I'm blanking on his name, but the one guy go to King's Landing, and he's the one that actually smuggles Arya out with all the other criminals, and to go back up to the wall. So that's just what it turns into. So it's crazy, and it's cool to see that it's almost 200 years, after these events, and seeing how things differ that way. But anyway, guys, this was awesome. Parker, I know you enjoyed the episode, and we enjoyed having you on the podcast. Again, make sure to watch on YouTube so you can see the Princess of the Realm herself. But thank you all for watching. Thank you all for listening. Make sure to subscribe and follow us on social media and really engage. We really want you guys to let us know your thoughts, chime in with your opinions. Do you agree? Do you disagree? And hopefully we can make this all better for you. But we'll be streaming every single week, watching House of the Dragon, recapping, breaking it down with you. And we'll see you next time. So thank you so much, everybody. And on to episode 3.
MV Parker, MV Parker, MV Parker.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Geek and You Shall Find podcast, powered by Superhero Faces. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And follow us on Facebook and Twitter at Superhero Faces, and on Instagram at Superhero_Faces.